Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
Attention all campers.
The All-American Spook Show welcomes you to enroll in Camp Spookshow this summer. We have activities for all ages, including archery, canoeing, swimming, and
Running for your lives.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the All-American Spook Show podcast. I'm Josh and I'm joined here with Donny.
Hey.
And the Professor Smoak.
What's up?
Will, as pretty much has been the flavor of the week here. He's still on vacation. He's not with us this week. Hopefully we'll have him back next week because it's his choice next week. And he has already made that choice, and we will announce that at the end of the episode. We call that a tease in the biz. So stick around to the end, and we'll let you know what's coming next week here on the Spook Show. But this week, we're basically just putting a big bow on Camp Spook Show. This is the Camp Spook Show wrap-up special. This is normally where we have Spook Show spotlights, and this isn't really a spotlight. It's more of just to kind of, let's talk about everything that we've done, and then kind of give our final thoughts on Camp Spook Show, and as to whether or not any of us feel that, we'll reopen the camp again at some point, maybe next summer, maybe at some other time of the year. We'll discuss it throughout here. But before we do that, I'll go ahead and throw out the usual information. You can contact us at allamericanspookshow@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at @AASpookShow. Of course, we have an Instagram, a Slasher. We're over on the Slasher app. We have a Facebook page. You should be able to find all those by searching for All American Spook Show, or we have a Linktree link down in the show notes. You can click on that and it should take you anywhere you want to go, including our YouTube page, also our TeePublic page where you can get logoed, the Spook Show logo, merchandise on mugs, shirts, masks, all kinds of random stuff. I think even like on pillows and stuff like that, stickers, all kinds of cool stuff. And of course, the big feature that we have is our Patreon, patreon.com/AASpookShow, where every month you get a bonus podcast. At least I think it's at the $5 level. You get a bonus podcast of Crapster Theater. We've been doing those every month. I think we just released number 5. That came out back on July 29th. And that means Crapster Theater number 6 will be a little bit later this month on August 26th. So all kinds of cool stuff over on patreon.com/AASpookShow. And we encourage you to go check that out and help out the show and become a patron. We also want to remind you to, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcast, go drop us a 5-star review because that'll help us, kind of help spread the love of the Spook Show out there. If we get more and more 5-star reviews over there, then that helps us out. So we encourage you to go do that if you haven't already. So yeah, like I said, I guess we'll kind of start from the beginning where we kicked off Camp Spook Show, and that was all the way back on June 6th, episode 111. This was Will's choice. We started with "You Might Be the Killer" from 2018. So just to recap, I'll give our ratings here. Donnie, you gave it 1 star.
Yeah, that's warranted.
Will gave it 1 3/4. Smoak, you gave it 1.5 stars, and I liked it a little better than all of y'all. I gave it 2 stars. So that was a consensus of 1.56, so 1.5 stars for "You Might Be the Killer." We never got the final.
Awesome running.
We never got the final kill count from Will on that one, I don't think. But Smoak, you gave the gore score of 6 on that one. So do you guys have any? We won't do the re-ratings or anything. We're just discussing what we did. We'll save the re-ratings for the 4th anniversary show on Halloween. But you guys got anything you wanted to add about "You Might Be the Killer," which we kicked it off with?
The only thing it's not really anything to add. It's more like I remember Will being sorely disappointed in himself for picking this. Because he was just like, yo, listen, I saw the movie poster. I didn't watch a trailer or whatever it was.
I think on this one he had watched the trailer. And the trailer, once again, like we always say, it sold him a bill of goods. Like, he saw the trailer, oh, this looks pretty good, and then, the rest is history.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty funny.
I thought I remember thinking it was a little. It was clever in the sense that it told that story backwards the way it did. I thought that was unique, and I think that's why I kind of gave it an extra bump than you guys did. But yeah, that being said, it's not a great one. It was somewhat of a poor way to start Camp Spookshow off, that's for sure. Smoak, do you have any final word on it?
No, it was just it was we talked about it. It was a disappointment as far as like you go in hoping for the best, like it's a modern slasher film, maybe it'll be something. And like you said, it told the story from a different angle than you usually get, so that was at least a little bit of something to grasp onto of interest.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall it was kind of throwaway, I guess. But we were on to bigger and better things eventually. Like, I mean, you got to start somewhere. So it's better to start that way than it is to start with right out of the gates, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's an argument to be made either way. Like, right, it's all uphill from there until it went downhill again, and we'll get there.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely the summer camps. What's it called? Spook Show? No,
Camp Spookshow.
Summer Camp Spookshow. Yeah, was definitely if you look at the graph of our ratings, if you were to graph it or whatever, it's probably a roller coaster.
Oh yeah, it is. There's no doubt about that. Because it kind of goes up in the middle and then right back down again. So, but the very next day, that was June 6th. The very next day, on June 7th, we had our latest Patreon video minisode. That was number 60, and the library segment that you did, Smoak, for that episode was you showed us your VHS copy of Friday the 13th from 1980. Obviously, we did a whole episode all the way back to episode 30 of the Spook Show on the original Friday the 13th. We all loved it, obviously, so we encourage you to go back and check that out. But it was a good pull to see that unique VHS copy you have of that, because that's the one that like opens up kind of like a book. The case on that
was
one?
The very first VHS release of it, and it looks very much like other VHS releases in that it was that normal slimline case. But for whatever reason, back then Paramount, when they first started releasing those VHS, they had that open up. People call them a book box, but it's not like the MGM UA Missing in Action, Death Wish 3. Those. It's not that oversized book box. It was a weird slip cover that just happened to open, and it had like the blue Paramount Mountain logo, and so definitely a little bit unique. When they re-released it, it didn't have that. When they re-released it a few years later, it just had the regular.
Yeah, so I think we talked about that. We believe that was like one of the, we couldn't quite peg down when that came out, but it probably came out in 80 or 81, right? Somewhere around there. Yeah. So it's a very early VHS copy of it. So that was cool. And
also, you can't see this on the show, on Library of the Professor or anything. I mean, well, we probably could if I'd recorded it or sent it to you in advance or whatever. But the Paramount logo on that during those times was way different too. It wasn't it was a different look. It was a very, very 80s, even though it was the beginning of the 80s. It may have even been made in the late, 79 when they did that logo. But it's a very 80s logo of this Paramount Mountain with a synth stab or whatever underneath it. I like it much better than the later Paramount logos. But, again, that's a subjective thing. Some people might think it's a little bit garish. And the slimline Paramount, like you see in the Raiders of the Lost Ark, in the movie. Whenever they got the mountain there, right?
Yeah.
The Paramount logo.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
That's the iconic Paramount logo that most people think about. This one was a bit more leaning heavy on the 80s look and the synth sounds and all that stuff.
Then we move on to the next week on June 13th. We released episode 112. That was our latest Cult Corner episode, Meatballs from 1979. Now, this was my nominee on a wheel spin that we did over on Deadline Horror News, I believe, right, Donny?
Yeah.
We spun that and it landed on Meatballs. So for that one, let's see, Meatballs. Okay, Donny, you gave it 3 1/4 star. We still have yet to, now granted, a good chunk of this from Camp Spookshow, Will's been gone a lot this summer on random vacations and stuff, so we have not got his rating on Meatballs just yet. But Smoak and I both also gave it 3 1/4 stars. So right now, as we sit, until we get Will's rating, it's 3 1/4 star across the board for Meatballs. So what more can you say?
And Meatballs is a classic.
So much better than its distant cousin, Summer Camp, from the same time. Good Lord, night and day, man. That's all I can say. Night and fucking day. So yeah, obviously, since that was a Cult Corner, there was no kill count or gore score, so we'll just leave it there. But needless to say, you need to go listen to episode 112 because that was a good episode. And if you've never seen Meatballs, please do yourself a favor and go find it and go watch that because that's an awesome movie. But the next day, on our latest Patreon video minisode, number 61, the library segment on that one, Smoak, was Berserker from 1987, and that you talked about your Blu-ray copy that you had for that.
Yeah, the Viking / Killer Bear camp movie. Not summer camp necessarily, not, like I said, I kind of had to bend the rules for some of the stuff I showed in the library segment because as we also learned going through this, that there's not really as many movies set in a specific summer camp as there are just summer-related camp movies, per se.
Yeah.
And we talked about that with the Friday 13th movies. There's only a handful of them that are actually set at a kid's summer camp or teenage summer camp or whatever. A lot of the other ones are just around Crystal Lake. And then a lot of the other movies, slasher movies, are also just around a lake that somebody's set up a tent and they're camping that way, So, and that's kind of like what Berserker was. It was camping out and being attacked by this. Is it a bear or is it a Viking berserker? You'll have to find it out for yourself.
They're easily confused. Now,
I guess they would. There's about 1,000 years difference.
Yeah, well, there's that.
This movie. I mean, not that they didn't have bears in, but I mean, there's 1,000 years of difference between when this movie was set and when the Viking Age was. But for some reason. There could be a berserker in it.
But yeah, here we are. I should have talked about it off the top. Like, our original concept and kind of the rule for Camp Spookshow was that everything we did this summer would be a summer camp related movie. So, whether it was horror, our horror reviews, or whether it was a cult corner movie, crapster piece, cannon fodder, they would all be summer camp related. And you'll see as we go along here, we had to kind of break the rules a couple times. Throughout the summer, because it's far more limiting than you would think if you're just being very specific about summer camps. Because then once you start watching something, you realize, wait a minute, this isn't summer, it's the fall, or this doesn't have anything to do with it, really to do with the summer camp at all, or even though it's called summer camp, blah blah blah. So we'll go through that. But the next episode that we did on June 20th was episode 113, and this was my choice from 1981, The Burning.
That was a good one.
And right now, I think as we speak, I think it's so far throughout the entire Camp Spook Show series, it's going to be the highest rated movie that we did, possibly other than maybe Meatballs. Whenever we get Will's score on that one, that could possibly draw it even or make it go above. But either way, The Burning, Donnie, you gave it 3 3/4 stars. Will gave it 3 1/4. Smoak, you gave it 3 3/4, and then I gave it 3.5. So that's a consensus score of 3.56, so 3.5 stars from the Spook Show gang. We'll give a kill count of 10 on that one, and then the gore score, Smoak, was 7. So really not much more you can say about The Burning, man. Just an awesome example of a summer camp slasher gone right. Yeah,
it was one of the big ones, one of the big titles that we had on the show, or one of the big titles in general for summer camp slasher movies. It was, it was a title I would have picked. Well, I was going between two titles, and we'll get to the one I picked later. And I know that you were probably. I think we were probably on the same page with those two titles. If one was one, the other one can pick the other.
Yeah, pretty much exactly. Yeah. But then the next day after that, the latest Patreon video minisode number 62 on June 21st, Smoke Your Library segment was Summer School from 1987. Your VHS copy of that. So you found a way. You found a way to worm that movie in on some level.
As much as I've talked about it, various episodes here and there, I have to find a way to get it. And eventually it'll be on the show in the capacity probably of Cult Corner or something.
I was going to say, I wouldn't call that crapster piece because it's pretty good. I remember liking it, back in the day. So yeah, it'd probably be more of a Cult Corner choice at this point, I would imagine. Because it's definitely not a horror movie, right? So if we ever watch it, it'd be Cult Corner or some other thing.
As anybody who's seen it knows, it's got that horror influence with the two, Chainsaw and Dave characters, which is why I loved it so much. It's got some decent humor and lines and all that, one-liners or whatever in it, anyways. But it was Chainsaw and Dave that really made it me.
Oh yeah, I totally imagine now that that's just straight up you in 1987.
Oh yeah, I was trying to get shit into the classroom that shouldn't be in the classroom, and I almost talked our psychology teacher into letting us watch Clockwork Orange, but it didn't fly.
So yeah, that was that video minisode. Then the next day, on June 22nd, we preempted Deadline Horror News, our live show with a Deadline Horror News special, top 5 summer camp horror movies. Now we kind of did a an unofficial countdown, so to speak, because we didn't really rank them like 1 through 5. We just gave 5 choices and then a few bonus ones. But the 5 movies that we discussed on that one, and you can watch this. This was a whole produced up video that we put over on our YouTube channel, so that is available right now. If you missed it back in June, it is available to watch. But the 5 that we focused on were Sleepaway Camp, Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th Part 2, The Burning, and Madman. So I think that pretty well encompasses the 5 of the best summer camp horror movies, right? I mean, like, we couldn't think of much else. I mean, there are a few that you could probably put on there, but those were the ones that really we all kind of agreed were some of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's sticking with the strict. We try to keep it strict summer camp.
Summer camp. Yep.
Setting up not the camping out at summertime when you're tent or whatever.
Although once again, Madman's kind of skirting the line there, as we found out later on.
Yeah, there were some other ones. There were some other ones in there, not in the our top 5s, but some of the other ones down the road too that were like we didn't know. You assumed this kind of like, or if we hadn't seen it, we assumed.
We hadn't really. We just didn't dwell on it at that time until we found out later on. Like, wait a minute, But yeah, I think that's a pretty good list. And like I said, we put a pretty good little video together over on our YouTube. So we encourage you to go check that out. But then 2 days later on June 24th, Donnie, this was one of your favorites. I know this was one of the highlights of Camp Spookshow for you. Crapster Theater number 4 released. Ernest Goes to Camp from 1987. Now I say that because, Donnie, this was your choice. Now granted, it was one that was voted on, by the Spook Show fans, but by the Spook Show universe, so to speak. But this was your nominee, so I'm going to let you have the floor to talk about your love for Ernest Goes to Camp.
Ernest Goes to Camp. Well, this was the very first Ernest movie, and yeah, it's
all downhill from there.
Yeah, it's a shame they made more. So no, I mean, yeah, it was the first, but if you have to pick a favorite, this is definitely not one of them. But then again, I think Adam actually
we briefly talked about that with him on the summer camp 2015 episode that he was on. Was that, just last week? Yeah, and he was really glowing about it, right? If I recall, he was like, that's
one of his favorites.
Yeah. I think he kind of put it like one of his favorite movies of all time was kind of the way he put it, right? That might be hyperbole, but I think that's kind of what he was getting at.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a nostalgia. Oh, there's a big nostalgia factor. I think for me, I didn't see Ernest Goes to Camp first. I think my first Ernest movie it wasn't even the Scared Stupid one either. I'm pretty sure it was Ernest Saves Christmas.
That's exactly what mine was.
Yeah.
No, I'm almost positive Ernest Goes to Camp was my first one.
Yeah.
But when you're I was 7 when it came out. This is awesome, right? I think I even said it in that episode. Like, this was made for 7-year-old Josh, not 42-year-old Josh. So that's just the way it is,
Another good example of that is Howard the Duck. I saw Howard the Duck in the theater when it came out, and I don't remember what year. Can't remember what year that was.
87 or 88, I think.
Was it? Was that far in?
I think that, maybe 86.
If it came out in 86, then I was like 12, 13, depending on what time in 86. So when I saw that in the theater at 12 or so, I thought that was like, well, this is funny. It's got that, I don't remember if it's PG-13, but it had a little bit of that, the comic book, of course, is a little bit more adult oriented than the movie was, but it had a little bit of that. So I thought it was hilarious at 12. For some reason, it took a little bit longer for that movie to come to VHS, even a little bit longer than the normal time back then, which was like, 6, 7, 8 months, maybe, something like that, depending, It took like a year or more, it seemed like, before it came out. So by the time it came out and I was a teenager then, I thought, why did I like this movie that much?
Howard the Duck was 1986.
86, yeah, okay. So that was right. I was between 12 when it came out, and after well over 13 when I saw it on video.
I think I have a very similar story with that one. Like, I remember at the time, like, oh, this is hilarious, and now you're like, what the fuck? What was wrong with me?
I'm pretty. I don't know. That's something I want to look up outside the show to see, because I swear there was some kind of delay for whatever reason between it coming out after the theaters and coming on VHS was longer than your average wait time. So I don't know. I just remember it. I saw it way later, and it was definitely not nearly as funny as I thought it was in the theater.
But for Crapster Piece, now, in case you never go over to patreon.com/Spookshow and give those a listen, and you should, because if you vote on that poll, then you owe it to us to go over to patreon.com/Spookshow and subscribe, just so you can listen to these things, because we're only doing it because you're telling us to do it. Basically, we put up the poll You choose the movie, and then we have to watch it, so you should have to listen to it. Anyways, our scale there is basically, it is established that all those movies are turds, right? So we have a sliding turd scale, so to speak, of
that sounds pretty. Like getting the toilet yet, or is it still clenched up enough?
Floater is like, it's a turd, but it's a tolerable turd, and it's something I might watch if I had to again, kind of thing. Then we have a sinker, which is kind of that middle ground, like you're unsatisfied, but you're satisfied enough to where you just you don't have to plunge the toilet or anything. You just kind of let it go. And then there's diarrhea. That's the worst of the worst. Like it sucks, and there's no redeeming qualities. It's just the worst.
That's one. No, pretty much we'll never get to ever watching again, and wish we had that hour and a half or two or whatever it took to watch it back.
Yeah, and to date there's been 2 of those. But Ernest Goes to Camp earned a sinker, so it was that middle ground where we didn't absolutely love it, but we didn't hate it either. So that right now, that's where it stands. But then the next episode after that, the regular episode on June 27th, was episode 114. Smoak and I did a Spook Show spotlight on the Friday the 13th legal drama and kind of talked about the careers of Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller. So really, you just need to kind of go give that episode a listen in the archives. That was more of just kind of putting it in simple layman terms, exactly what was going on, what was the beef between Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller, why they're suing each other. Obviously, it's over money and all the money that they could rake in over Jason Voorhees. But because they're fighting about it, nobody's really making as much money as they should because they can't make anything new. But then we come to Independence Day, July 4th. That was our next episode because we took a week off from doing the Patreon video minisodes that week. Episode 115, Donny's Choice, from 2017, Never Hike Alone. And that was a Spook Show first, right, Donny?
Yeah, that was the first time we had done a fan film. I had actually chose it right before you guys had announced that we were doing the Friday the 13th legal drama.
Yeah. So it just kind of, it turned out, yeah.
Yeah. Just,
serendipity.
The way it turned out. Yeah.
And we were all pleasantly surprised by that one. And that's reflected in our scores. Donny, you gave it 3 1/4 stars. Will gave it 2 3/4 stars. Same as Smoak, 2 3/4, and then I gave it 3 stars. So that's a consensus score of 2.94. So we'll call it 3 stars.
This is neither here nor there, but every time when we're doing the ratings in a row like that, and we do you gave it 2 3/4 stars. Will gave it 1 3/4 stars. It sounds like Star Search to me.
Yeah.
Star Search.
Ed McMahon.
Because
Yeah. Hi-oh.
You gave stars?
That's probably a dated reference at this point too, right? Like anybody under the age of say, I don't know, 30 is like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Star Search?
Star Search. Ed McMahon. Anyways, Never Hike Alone. Will gave it a kill count of 2. Now I know that sounds low, but it is less than an hour long fan film, and it's a very small cast. But Smoak, you gave it a gore score of 4.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that as probably the budget, even though it looked really good. The budget he had for what he did looked really good. It's just that you probably have it in the budget to make it look that good, as well as have a bunch of kills and splatter effects and all that stuff in it. So minimal cast and minimal gore, great cinematography and everything for the price for his budget and everything.
Then the next day on July 5th, the next Patreon video minisode number 63, your library segment, Smoak, was Night of the Demon from 1980. Now I remember in particular, Donny, you were not there for that one. You were off doing whatever, so you weren't there for that. But Smoak talked about his copy of it on VHS and on Blu-ray, right? That was a more recent acquisition. I think you pointed out that you just got that. But yeah, this movie looks interesting.
Yeah, we gotta. I don't know what to put it on. I don't know if we should slide it into the cult corner. I mean, it could fit craps. I think personally, for me, it's more than a crapster piece, but I don't know that anybody else would think that. Other people, y'all might think that it's straight up because it's crapster piece, and I can see that. Yeah, so I don't know. Or it might just be my choice for an older horror movie.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, if you really want to shoehorn it in, so to speak, you could just pick it yourself next time you get an older one. But you could put it on the wheel spin for Cult Corner, and then if you don't win, put it on the poll for Crapster Piece. That That way, one way or another, we get to it, right? However you want to classify it, as long as we're watching it.
I think I want to be on horror or the cult corner though, because I don't want to. That one I don't want to limit the scope of it. Craft pieces for our patrons and everything. I don't think I want to limit the scope of the aura,
the impact,
the essence of that movie.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The management of this drive-in theater is happy to announce you can enjoy your favorite form of movie entertainment regardless of rain. No longer will it be necessary to let rain spoil your fun. Now you can keep your windshield clear and dry with a drizzle guard. Simply attach it to your windshield, and in a jiffy you're enjoying the movie without constantly running your windshield wipers.
All right, so the next episode that we did the next week on July 11th was episode 116. Oh, God. Our latest cannon fodder, Hot Chili. I told you that this, Donnie, I told you this movie would come back up in various ways, and here we are again.
Yeah, here we are.
Big steaming bowl.
God.
Now, this was one of the ones we were talking about where we had a loose definition of Camp Spookshow here, because we even talked to Canon Film Guide author Austin Trunick, who does the recurring Canon Chronicles, is what we're going to start calling that, his segment. Every time we have a Canon fodder, we're going to have a Canon Chronicles from Austin Trunick. But we actually asked him, like, dude, we don't see a summer camp movie of any type that Canon made. Can you help us out? And he looked around and he couldn't find anything either. And trust us on this, there's nobody in this world that is qualified enough, other than probably, well, Menachem Golan, he's dead. Yoram Globus, maybe, on this matter of, well, did Canon make this or not? He said no, but he gave us two choices that were, close enough. Hot Chili and Hot Resort. And when we looked at them, they basically look like the same movie, except, just like put it in a different spot kind of thing, so
yeah.
I don't think we're wrong about that, but I don't know if we picked the right one. We flipped the coin, so to speak, and we chose Hot Chili from 1985, and God
we're
almighty,
still paying for it.
If Hot Resort is any worse, Jesus H. I don't know. I don't know if I want to see it. Now, granted, at some point in the as we keep going through Canon fodder, we'll probably hit it. But geez,
we'll have to.
Yeah, this one was bad.
Well, folks, we got down to every Canon movie. We've gone through every Canon movie except Hot Resort. This will be the last Canon fodder. So
it's somewhere between Hot Resort and the Apple, I think we should say, for the bitter fucking end. Now we'll get to the Apple, I'm sure, way before that. But on Hot Chili, we gave it, Donnie, you gave it 1 star. Will, 1 star. Smoak, 1.25. No, I'm sorry, these aren't star. I'm sorry. These are cannonballs. I gave it 1 cannonball, and then Austin, now he gave it 2 cannonballs, and that's because he said there's way worse.
We haven't hit that one all yet.
So yeah, that means you add all 5 of them up, and the average, the consensus is we came up with 1.25 cannonballs. That's our rating. We have the sliding Canon rating scale over there on Canon fodder, so it's a little different, but we gave it a cannonball and 1/4. So that's where we're going to leave old Hot Chili for now, and then we'll have a chance to re-rate that if anybody wants to come the 4th anniversary show. The next day on July 12th, our next video mini-sode over on Patreon, number 64, the library segment Smoak did was Friday the 13th, the final chapter. That's part 4 of the Friday the 13th series from 1984. He talked about his VHS copy of that one. Now, that's kind of loose, too, I believe, right, Smoak, as far as, like, that wasn't necessarily summer camp on that one, right?
Yeah.
That's more of, like, they rented a resort or a cabin or something like that.
Yeah, that was Tommy Jarvis, the character of Tommy Jarvis's first episode. Corey Feldman played him, and they lived in a house around the lake, and the teenagers came in to either rent or stay at somebody who knew that this other house, again, somewhere around the lake, they were staying at that house during the summertime. But yeah, technically not a summer camp movie, but a summer at the lake movie.
Yeah. Close enough. I mean, I think anybody would instantly think any of those Friday the 13th movies fit the criteria. Even though they're not all summer camp related, it's close enough, right? So I don't think anyone would argue any of those, really.
Until we did the show, I never thought about that aspect of it, which until we sat down and we're looking at, really, there's only about 4, I guess.
I think 3 or 4 of them, yeah.
Summer camp related.
Yeah, but then the next episode of the podcast we did on July 18th, episode 117, this was Smoak's choice from 1981, Madman. And once again, as we mentioned earlier, that it's a camp for kids, but it's a fall camp. So that was the great mystery. It's like, what? Where do you go to a fall camp? Usually that's where you're in school, right? Like, and they're like, all right, kids, it's time for the Thanksgiving break. Like, it's just weird, that aspect of it. But I think other than that, though, it meets all the other criteria, right?
Yeah, I think it started out as a summer camp movie, but they were shooting it in the fall, and I guess they got tired of trying to make everything look like summer, so they said, fuck it, it'll just be fall camp.
Yeah, because we talked about that, like the leaves were turning, because they filmed it like in November to December that year, and then the leaves start turning and falling off. So then they were having to like hot glue leaves on the trees and paint them green and stuff like.
Literally painting leaves green, I guess, and gluing them on the trees. But they must have gave up at some point during the movie and decided,
fuck it, let's just go with the Thanksgiving thing. It's a fall camp now. But yeah, what can you say? I mean, another great pick. And like you said, Smoak, if I hadn't picked The Burning, it was probably going to be Madman, and I'm sure vice versa for you. So that was kind of the trade-off. We still don't have Will's rating for that, but all three of us gave it 3 stars. So as we sit, it's 3 stars for Madman. And Smoak, you gave it a gore score of 5 on that one. Our next, on the next day, on July 19th, we did our next video minisode on Patreon, number 65. The library segment you had, Smoak, was Cannibal Ferox from 1981. Now, this one was unique because you showed us your laser disc, the DVD, the VHS, and even the copy of the soundtrack on 45 and on CD. So you had it all in this episode.
Oh yeah. That's I don't know how it just turned out that way. I mean, yeah, it is one of those movies that, and I talked about it in that segment that I rented it on that VHS. I showed the big box VHS and couldn't make my way through it at the time because that was early in my extreme horror days. The most extreme thing I'd seen was probably Dawn of the Dead, and I had seen Joe D'Amato's Buried Alive, which is another Italian shocker. Not quite as messed up as Cannibal Ferox, but a little bit, it got me there. So when I first saw that, I took it back. Animal cruelty is messed up, and everybody knows horror movie knows that that's in those cannibal movies. So I couldn't even make it through it. I took it back to the video store, and I was like, fuck this movie, But then after seeing more of them, I eventually got back around and renting it again, and it is a movie that's anybody who's a fan of the cannibal movies, you pretty much have to leave that baggage of the animal violence at the door, so to speak. It's there. You just don't try to don't dwell on it. There are some DVD cuts that try to cut that stuff out, and there'll be an animal cruelty free version. But the VHS days didn't have that, so it was a grueling thing to get through, so to speak. It's almost like Faces of Death. Remember we talked about that too?
Yeah.
That's kind of like what do you call those things? Like a trial, test, a trial to get through sort of as a teenager or whatever. And that's kind of like what Cannibal Ferox was.
This is probably super fucked up, but I can watch human suffering. It's animal suffering. I can't do, man. I can't do it. That
is fucked up, but yeah, I can see what you're getting at because it's hard to just grab a hold of an animal and just fucking them up, especially most animals. Obviously not a wild animal, but most animals will trust you. So there's a different level of fucked up when you take something that trusts you fully, unconditionally, and then you just take it and hurt it. That's a special level of fucked.
I know most of those cannibal movies they were taking animals from the jungle, like the turtle in Cannibal Holocaust, for instance, and they would supposedly the tribe members ate the animals afterwards and all that stuff. It wasn't like it was still fucked up. I mean, the animal violence is still very messed up, but it wasn't like they took this, this person's pet cat, and let me twist its neck or something. It wasn't. It was jungle animal. Usually, like boa constrictors, and if a boa constrictor was wrapped around and eating a monkey or something like that, and it's messed up, but that shit happens in the jungle. So they were showing some of that type of stuff. So it's still messed up to see.
It's almost like they took kind of a documentary approach for realism, but took it to a real place kind of thing.
Yeah. Still very exploitative.
Yes.
But realistically something that you would see in the jungle, but you don't, not in the way they would shoot it.
Yeah, not something you want to dwell on and show as long as they would show it in these movies.
Yeah.
But, I was going to say onward and upward, but not really. The next week, our next episode of the podcast, July 25th, episode 118, our latest Cult Corner. Donnie, this one's for you. Summer Camp, 1979. Now, once again, this was a Will spin, but it was my nominee that won it. So,
It's your fault.
I guess. I'll take the
It
blame.
is.
I'll take the hit. I got sold a bill of goods, like we say, because of that damn poster. I'm like, hey, this is 1979, same time Meatballs came out. Animal House was like a year or two before. This poster looks fun. This ought to be good. Then you have to watch the movie. And the unfortunate part is this was Cult Corner. This muddies the waters of Cult Corner, the Cult Corner series, because before that, we had done Big Lebowski and The Warriors, like two movies that all of us, I think, generally, love, like two great, awesome cult classics. And then we stick this piece of shit in there somehow. So one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
How many Cult Corners have we had?
Just the three, I think.
That was 4.
That was 4?
That was it. That worked.
Summer camp was 4 because we had Meatballs.
Oh yeah, Meatballs. I keep forgetting about that. Yeah. So those first 3, we loved them. We generally loved them all. Like across the board. Like, oh man, all of them. On some levels. Now I remember Will not being the biggest fan of the Warriors like we were, but still, he still gave it. I'm going back and look. He still gave it 2.5 stars, so it was still a fair score compared to this. Now we do not have Will's rating for Summer Camp from 1979 yet. Donnie, you gave it 1 star. Smoak, you and I both gave it 1.25 stars. So let's just call it a little over 1 star right now as we speak. Not good. Like I said, it ruins the curve for Cult Corner.
None of us had ever seen that movie. Like, this is the first time for all of us. So
yeah, I believe so.
None of us knew it was a crap piece related movie.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's how it rolls. Like,
well, yeah, that's the roll of the dice that we take here on All American Spook Show.
Sometimes, most of the time, one of us has probably seen most of the movies we do. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know what the average on that is, but at least one of us has probably seen it. There's been a few, or more than a few maybe, that none of us have seen going in. This is one of them.
The next day on July 26th, the latest Patreon video minisode number 66 came out, and Smoke Your Library segment was on your visit to Grindhouse Video in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was a place I'd definitely recommend anybody go to if you're in the area or if you're passing through the area. Like we were going from Missouri back home to South Carolina, and we had to go through Knoxville, and we knew about this place, and it wasn't far off the path for us, so we went there and dropped too much money.
That would be the only downfall to like me going up there and doing it, because I probably would spend way too much. But like, yeah, you got a lot of cool stuff. It looks like a really cool store, and then maybe one of us hopefully will get back up there and we can do some little video segment. Because it looked really cool, and I think it's worth doing something special on, because there's not a lot of those type of places around anymore, so it's cool. Yeah. It's cool just to visit those type of things and document them. But the next week, or I should say at the end of that same week, on July 29th, we did the latest Crapster Peace Theater, Donnie. Now this was fucked up, okay? Because this was just me and Donnie having to do this because Will's on vacation and Smoke, you were at a concert. So we had to do Crapster Peace Theater number 5, even though it was your choice. Camp Blood from 2000. Now, granted, you nominated it and it won the poll, but still, this was you, motherfucker. And then we had to suffer.
Bait and switch. I never went to that concert. I just didn't want to do the fucking
There was no concert, asshole.
You looked it up. Rob Zombie wasn't even playing in Charlotte.
Yeah, son of a bitch. That was in like fucking Long Beach, California. Yeah,
well, yeah. Out there.
Yeah. What the fuck? Now I will say, Donnie and I. Now look, Smoke. We'll give you a chance to weigh in, and Will too, since you numbskulls didn't show up for that episode. But we'll give you a chance to weigh in on the 4th anniversary for that one. But Donnie and I both gave it diarrhea. And I don't think that's going to heavily influence what you're going to think about it, because I think you're going to agree. But
probably not. I'm sure.
Yeah, I think you're going to agree. But man, that movie is the drizzling shits. That's all I'll say.
I've never seen it either. But my wonder about this is we talked about there's 12 of them, right? Or somewhere in the neighborhood of 12.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's something stupid. Yeah,
and
they continue to make
get any better than that is what I wonder. I mean, I haven't seen it. I assume it's shit. It's absolute shit, I'm sure. But
I, too, wonder that, but then I realize I'm not a what do they call that? Somebody that likes to hate themselves, like a sadomasochist or a masochist or whatever. Yeah. I'm not a masochist, so I don't know if I really want to know that bad. You know what I mean? But we'll probably get there. We'll find out, I guess, over time.
hopefully we don't make it through all 12. We might be dead by that time that happened.
Yeah. Well, all right. So let's see. After that, back on August 1st. So this was just last week. We're finally almost there to the bitter end here. The last movie that we watched for Camp Spookshow, episode 119, Summer Camp from 2015, and that was a wild card choice, by the way. No one in particular chose that. We just kind of did we do a wheel spin for that, Donnie? I think we did, right? I think we all kind of nominated something and then threw it up, or I don't remember. Yeah, we did. We did because remember I nominated. Yeah, this was my nominee because I nominated it just because it was called Summer Camp. Remember?
Yeah. You're just like, let me throw it in there.
Yeah, it's called Summer Camp, and then damn if it didn't win. But we did do a wheel spin. It was a wild card, and that one won. And we had a special guest, the host of, or one of the hosts, I should say, from the Hero Movie Podcast, Adam Porter's friend of the show. Before I give our ratings for this one, Smoak, we're going to give you, since you weren't on that episode and you did watch it, we're going to go ahead and give you an opportunity now to go ahead and give your thoughts on Summer Camp from 2015 and your rating and the gore score if you got it.
I didn't expect what the movie was going to be because I didn't read anything about it. I don't even know if I saw. I guess we saw. Did you posted the trailer for it, right? When we were doing these, or no? I don't even remember.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this was straight up just based on the fact that it was called Summer Camp. All right, let's do it.
Yeah. So I just went straight into it thinking it was a summer camp slasher movie, just a modern day version of a summer camp slasher film, whether it's going to be a stereotypical one or whether it was going to try and go somewhere like the first one we did in the Summer Spookshow Summer Camp.
You might be the killer.
Yeah, you might, something like that. I was kind of expecting maybe it would be something along those lines set the summer camp. But so it turned out that at the beginning it was going to be like that, it seemed still, with the girl in the woods with the blindfold, and then the guy, big dude behind her with the knife, and like think he's going to kill her maybe or something, but he cuts her loose, turns around, he's not there. So I'm still thinking, okay, it's going to be a slasher movie. This is just, they're going to start killing off these kids, these teenagers at some point. And nope, turns out it's some kind of pollen / whatever, what they think it is, turning them into some sort of, I don't know, rabid / it kind of, like I said, kind of reminded me a little bit of cabin fever thrown in there, or a little bit of rabbit, a little bit of, as far as hell, I thought Cujo was getting thrown in there at first because the dog.
Yeah. It's a little bit of all those things, and it turns out they're just on super shrooms.
Yeah. He has some kind of chemically enhanced hillbilly, Spanish hillbilly.
Spanish hillbillies. Whatever they call those over there.
Yeah.
I'm sure they got them too.
Yeah, I guess so. And but yeah, it went in a different direction, but I don't know if it was necessarily better for me or not. And we've talked about this again too. Like when it comes to modern movies, it takes a little bit more for it to get my attention, I guess, and stuff. As far as like, I can watch a movie from the 70s and 80s and have it be a shitty little slasher film, and probably I'm going to like it more than a shitty little slasher film made today.
Yeah,
it's just my age and nostalgia, all that stuff, So this one seems like that to me. It seems like it would have been something that would have came along in the 70s or 80s as a slasher movie. Well, it's not really a slasher movie, but whatever the case may be, as even the same storyline in the 70s or 80s, I might have been able to get behind it a little bit more, give it a little bit more leeway than this one coming out in whatever year it was, 2015, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Pretty sure it was. So I thought I thought the drill scene was cool whenever the girl was on the other side of the door and he was trying to get in, whatever, or get her out. And then she drilled through his foot thinking he was a killer or whatever. And the drill's sitting there spinning around with a drill bit, I guess.
Yeah. He's like, take it out.
Yeah. And that was pretty messed up. And that right there alone is probably going to give it the gore score. Because another thing, it wasn't too much gore overall. It was, you had them vomiting up the black blood / whatever it was from the soup that caused them to, first throw up whatever that stuff was.
Yeah, whatever made them rabid. Yeah.
Yeah. So not a whole lot of overall gore in it. Oh yeah, the first kill was I guess it was an eagle or an owl talon claw. Whenever the first guy was taken over by the door, became rabid, whatever, and he grabbed that claw and he clawed the guy's side of the guy's face, and then at some point they didn't show it right then. He killed the guy with the claw, I guess, right? Is that what that was, sticking out of his chest?
I don't know exactly how that went down, but it was something like that. Because you didn't see it. Like you said, you didn't see it happen. So
it's kind of off.
It just kind of, this dude's rabid, and it cuts back, and, he had killed him.
Yeah, he killed him with it. Something was sticking out of his chest.
Yeah.
At any rate, it wasn't up my alley, I guess you'd say, overall. I mean, like I said, it had those little bits and pieces here or there. definitely not one I would ever watch again. I guess I'll give it 1.5.
Before you continue into the gore score, Adam, who was the guest on that episode, he gave it 3 stars.
Oh.
And Donnie and I both gave it the same score of 2.25 stars. So I think we generally kind of liked it a little bit more than you did. But so yeah, you can go ahead and give your gore score.
Gore score.
Just because we had to do it.
Yeah, I probably would have rated it higher had it had a little bit more gore. And it seems like they could have gone gorier with it because of the rabid scenes, them becoming rabid. Spitting up the stuff and all that, whatever. And you had the drill scene. So it seems like they could have, if they had been gorier scenes, I think I would have bumped it up at least another star or 3/4 of the star or something. As it stands, though, that drill scene was probably the goriest thing in the movie. And also the one that you felt, like whenever the drill was in there, you definitely felt it. It was going around. You're like, oh yeah, that's gotta hurt.
That guy got his ass beat that whole movie, though, did he not? I forget what the character's name was. Will, I think.
Oh, also though, going back, this doesn't have to do with the gore score, but I like the setting of it. It was in Spain, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool. That is also a similar thing with The Nun. The Nun movie wasn't the best by far of the Conjuring franchise, I don't think, but the setting of The Nun really made that movie at least be something. At least something to look at.
Yeah.
It was in. I think it was Spain as well, or it was somewhere in Europe.
I think it could have been. Might have been Spain as well.
Yeah. Definitely in Europe somewhere.
Yeah.
Over there, out in the woods and the castle and all that stuff. This one was set in like a villa. I guess it was a villa that was non-functioning anymore, right? Like they said, they would use it for summer camps. The way they would do it in Spain, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
some abandoned villa, they would just like, we'll just go set up a summer camp, have the kids come in here, get infected by some fucked up chemical shrooms or whatever. But yeah, I thought, although that was kind of cool. Yeah, they showed that part at the end where the kids come in and they're drinking the water and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. They're just like, no, get the fuck back. Don't come over here, get away. And then the only thing they want to do is just like drink from the fountain and just get it all over them. And the sprinklers come on. They're just like, oh yeah, getting it in their mouth and stuff. And, and then, of course, yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, the only other thing that we did during Camp Spookshow was last week's latest Patreon video minisode, number 67. Your library segment was where you talked about the Deep Red Horror Handbook by Chaz Balin. So that was basically kind of like one of those, the basis of the gore score, right? Is because of this book, or one of the reasons.
Yeah. I think he had a little pamphlet that I've done earlier on. I don't remember what episode of the library it was, but he has one called Gore Score, but it's very short. It's like, I don't have it right in front of me. I have it on a different shelf, not the one that I'm currently, even though you can't see on this podcast, the one I'm currently behind. It's probably maybe 35 pages, 40 pages at the most.
Yeah.
That Red Horror Handbook was like 300 and something pages. Now, granted, the Gore Score section of the Deep Red Horror Handbook was probably 50-ish, maybe a little bit more pages. So I think all the movies that he had in the Gore Score pamphlet was reprinted in the Deep Red Horror Handbook, plus more that wasn't in the Gore Score books. Same movies, but added on to that. That's different artwork. I had to buy Gore Score because, I was a huge Chaz Bale fan. I bought them back in the day anyways. But the Gore Score book has, and you've seen City of the Living Dead, right? Gates of Hell.
Yeah.
I think is the other name of it. The scene where the woman's in the car and the psychic priest is making her puke her guts out of her mouth, basically.
Yeah.
That really super scene. That's the cover of the Gore Score, appropriately enough. I mean, now it's not a scene from the movie. It's Chaz Balin doing the artwork like he normally does for the covers of his books and things. So it's Balin's rendition of that scene or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to have that book too. But anybody else, if you're looking for buying one or the other, then just go with the Deep Red Horror Handbook. It's got all those same Gore Score movies.
So yeah, that's pretty much where we left Camp Spookshow. That was the last little segment, although that wasn't directly Camp Spookshow. We did talk about The Burning of Madman again on that one. So that pretty much puts a bow on it with this episode. That's it. So Donnie, what are your overall thoughts of Camp Spookshow? I mean, do you think it's something we revisit again one day? I mean, did you enjoy it?
There were parts that were enjoyed Meatballs. I enjoyed The Burning. Never Hike Alone was a nice little
surprise,
nice little wrinkle. Madman I enjoyed. But then there were also
it was like your favorite though, right? Yeah.
There were a few, there were more than, it was about tit for tat. There were some good ones, but there were some turds too.
And not all of them were in the Crapster Piece Bowl.
Yeah.
True. I would say we could kind of close the book on Camp Spookshow for at least a year or two.
Maybe revisit it in a couple of years, open the camp back up. Maybe have a new selection.
Maybe they'll have a few more summer camp movies made.
Yeah, well,
years.
I'm telling you, there's a pretty thick list, but I think, like you said, there's not a lot of good ones. So maybe we wait for a couple more good ones. Who knows?
Yeah.
Just a few big ones we didn't get to. I mean, a few.
Yeah, there are a few.
A couple on Friday. Well, hell, we've only ever done one Friday the 13th on the show.
Trust me, there's enough to do this year after year, if you wanted to. You know what I mean? So, but like last summer we did Summer of the Wolf. This summer we do Camp Spookshow. Who knows what's next summer? Who knows what the next theme is? I think, just to put a bow on it myself, I had fun doing it. It was something different. I always enjoy it when we do these themes, because then you kind of get a good sense of the good and the bad. You know what I mean? Like, you get a little bit of everything there, because not everything we do is sunshine and lollipops. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
we're gonna watch some shit, and not just Crapster Piece, like Smoak said. Like, every once in a while on these other ones, especially Cannon Fodder, there's gonna be some shitty ones.
Yeah.
So you gotta get through those too. And we talked about that a little bit with Adam, is that, like, the horror genre in particular has a lot of really good movies. A lot of good movies, but it's got a lot of shit too, so like we gotta kind of crawl through that just as much as we do to get to the good ones, so. But to that end, we move on to, like, really awesome, much bigger, better things starting next week. It's Will's choice in the rotation. We go back to normally scheduled programming, so to speak, and he gets to pick an older horror movie, and he chose The Evil Dead from 1981, the Sam Raimi classic.
Hell yeah.
The IMDb synopsis is very brief, but I'll read it anyways. 5 friends travel to a cabin in the woods where they unknowingly release flesh-possessing demons.
Yeah, that's pretty much the synopsis for it. Of course, it doesn't touch on the humor that's in there, which
I think is what really sets it.
Is in the part 2 and in Army of Dark.
Yeah, I really think that's what sets it apart from a lot of these types of movies. So we'll get into that next week. That's something we're really looking forward to. And then, of course, I'll go ahead and toss it out, because we already established what it's going to be last month when we did a wheel spin over on Deadline Horror News. Our next Cannon Fodder, because we have to rinse hot chili out of our mouth. Like, it was too much. We had to go for a better Cannon movie this time around. We had some really good choices, but we spun the wheel and we landed on Smoak's choice. I believe it was, right? Yeah, it was Smoak's choice, his nominee. So episode 122, our next Cannon Fodder will be the Chuck Norris classic Missing in Action from 1984. So that's what you've got to look forward to coming up. So, like, Camp Spookshow is in the rearview mirror. We've got The Evil Dead coming. We've got Missing in Action on our next Cannon Fodder. Lots of big things coming as we slowly ramp up to the month of October for the 2nd annual Spook Show Awards, our 4th anniversary Halloween Spectacular. Lots of cool things in the planning stages. Lots of cool stuff going on in the Spook Show universe, so you don't want to miss out. And we encourage you to go over to patreon.com/AASpookShow to not miss out on all that stuff that we have going on over there, which a lot of it we talked about today. If you liked any of this stuff you heard today, where we were talking about those library segments, those Patreon video minisodes, you want to watch all that stuff, go to patreon.com/AASpookShow and become a member, at least I think at the $3 level, to watch those library segments and the weekly videos we put out. So lots of cool content. You don't want to miss any of that stuff. Lots of cool stuff. And like we said before, we encourage you to go over to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. That helps out the show. Every Monday, new episodes of the podcast come out. So I guess that's it for this week, guys. So for Will, who couldn't be with us, Donny, Professor Smoak, I'm Josh. We are the All-American Spook Show Podcast, and we'll talk to you next week for The Evil Dead.
It's now 9:30, and that's lights out time. 9:30, as you know. Tomorrow is Parents' Day, and you must look rested or Morty will be sent to the state penitentiary.